There is a sentence so powerful, so alive with truth, that when spoken with faith and knowing, it rearranges your entire world. This sentence does not ask permission. It does not beg. It does not plead. It commands. It declares. It shifts energy, disarms doubt, and invites the invisible to become visible. And the sentence is this: I now speak the word, and it is done. The moment these words are spoken with unwavering conviction, you activate the spiritual law that governs manifestation. You no longer sit in the waiting room of life, hoping something will change. You no longer remain in the shadows, paralyzed by fear, lack, or confusion. You step out as a divine being, clothed in confidence, knowing that your words are not mere sound, they are spiritual tools, keys that unlock the treasures already prepared for you. The entire universe responds to your vibration. It is not moved by desperation. It does not rush in because of panic, but it rises with power the instant you speak in alignment with divine authority. I now speak the word, and it is done. This is not just a sentence. It is a sword. It cuts through every lie of limitation, every veil of illusion. It goes before you and breaks down walls. It sends your good racing toward you, as surely as the sun rises without your effort. When you say these words, you declare the end of delay. You eliminate the middleman of doubt. You remove the blocks built by years of worry. You cancel every false story about not being ready, not being worthy, not being enough. You stop trying to make things happen through force, and instead allow the divine to do what only it can do: align the perfect path, in perfect timing, with perfect ease. Say it in the face of lack, and watch supply rise up from unexpected places. Say it when the way seems closed, and doors will appear where there were none. Say it when you feel lost, and the next step will light up before you. Say it when your heart is heavy, and joy will return on wings of grace. The power is not in the circumstance, the power is in your word. Every situation in your life is waiting on your declaration. Your health waits to hear that it is restored. Your finances wait to hear that they are overflowing. Your relationships wait to hear that they are healed, harmonious, and holy. But the law cannot respond until you give the word. Life cannot rearrange itself until you declare it so. You are not a victim of condition. You are the commander of it, not by force, not by fear, but by word. I now speak the word, and it is done. These words are not wishful thinking. They are not superstition. They are not empty affirmations. They are spiritual decrees. They are laws dressed in language. They are ancient truths coded in clarity. And when they are spoken with absolute trust, even mountains bow. So many wait for signs, for proof, for certainty. But the law says, speak first. Speak when it makes no sense. Speak when it feels impossible. Speak when the evidence says the opposite. Your word goes out and forms the unseen into form. It shapes substance into reality. It sends the spiritual blueprint into divine production. And nothing, no doubt, no delay, no difficulty can stop the delivery once the word has been spoken in faith. You may not see results immediately. That is not your concern. Just as a seed is hidden for a time beneath the soil, your word may be working in the invisible long before you see the result. But trust it, stand on it. Do not dig it up with worry. Do not cancel it with complaint. Do not smother it with disbelief. Let it do its perfect work, for it must bring forth after its kind. You are never speaking to empty air. You are addressing the living substance of the universe. You are speaking to the power that made worlds, the power that knows the answer before the question, the path before the problem. And that power responds not because of who you are in the flesh, but because of who you are in truth, a divine being, gifted with the authority to create by word. If you have spoken words in the past that created confusion or lack, do not despair. Speak again. Speak the higher word. Speak the new decree. The moment a new word is spoken in faith, the old word begins to dissolve. The new command overrides the past. The moment you say, I now speak the word, and it is done. The new vibration begins to restructure your life. This sentence is your sword. This sentence is your staff. This sentence is your key. And once you use it with conviction, nothing remains the same. It is the sentence that changes everything. Speak it in your morning. Speak it over your goals. Speak it when fear whispers lies.
Speak it when hope feels dim. Speak it when you're unsure, and especially speak it when you're sure. Let it become the rhythm of your life, the soundtrack of your soul. The spoken word is not idle chatter, not empty sound. It is the force of divine law moving through vibration. It is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, the invisible and the tangible. Every word spoken in consciousness is a seed cast into the fertile field of spiritual law, and it never returns void. It either brings forth weeds or it brings forth wonders. The difference lies not in the word itself, but in the consciousness behind it. Words are never neutral. They are either charged with faith or fear, peace or panic, love or limitation. And what you continually speak becomes the house you live in. You do not live in a world of external causes. You live in a world sculpted by your word. The ancient wisdom tells us, "In the beginning was the word." This is not symbolic poetry. It is a literal key to creation. Everything begins with the word. It is not action first. It is not proof first. It is word first. The spoken word is the blueprint. It is the divine decree that goes ahead to build the form. Speak in fear, and fear takes shape. Speak in power, and power takes shape. The word is not waiting on your effort. It is waiting on your alignment. Once you are aligned in thought, feeling, and word, the law moves with mathematical precision. It is not personal. It is not emotional. It simply obeys. It does not choose sides. It responds to vibration. If you speak limitation, limitation multiplies. If you speak expansion, expansion rushes in. The law does not favor some over others. It favors order, and the spoken word spoken in divine order releases the power that governs worlds. Most people speak reactively. They speak what they see, what they feel, what they fear. But those who know truth speak proactively. They speak from the realm of spirit, not from the appearance of condition. They speak what they intend to manifest, not what they momentarily observe. There is a great difference between echoing the world and declaring to the world. Echoes repeat circumstances. Declarations rewrite them. When you speak consciously, you stop being a mirror and start being a creator. You stop reciting problems and start installing solutions. You no longer narrate your wounds. You narrate your wonders. And as you do, law listens. Your word has never lost its power. It may have been buried under doubt. It may have been scattered in confusion. It may have been sabotaged by contradiction, but its power remains intact, waiting to be reclaimed. Every sentence you speak is either building your heaven or your hardship. You are either commanding angels or creating delay. You are either activating divine circuits or circuiting your own blessings. The law always responds. Even silence is a kind of speech, and worry is a silent affirmation of what you do not want. But the moment you become aware that your word is law, you begin to speak like a king, a queen, a spiritual authority who knows that nothing outside of them holds power. You begin to decree with clarity. You begin to select your words the way a sculptor selects their tools, with precision, with reverence, and with purpose. You are not trying to convince the universe. You are informing it. You are not begging. You are not wishing. You are commanding from a place of divine sonship, divine daughterhood, divine partnership. When you say, "I now speak the word, and it is done," you are not requesting approval. You are operating law. You are not hoping to be heard. You are invoking the ancient mechanism of manifestation that exists in every breath, every syllable, every spoken decree. You are not casting verbal spells. You are returning to the spiritual rhythm that has always governed creation. The spoken word is not performance. It is participation.
It is alignment. It is obedience to truth. It is the only tool you need when the world appears to fall apart, because with your word, you can call it back into order. The problem for many is that they speak from memory, not from vision. They speak what they have lived, not what they choose to live. They rehearse the past instead of declaring the new. But the word does not care about your history. It responds only to your present decree. What you say now has the power to erase, rewrite, restructure, and redirect. Your word does not just attract things, it instructs them. It tells energy where to go. It tells opportunity how to find you. It tells time how to collapse. It tells delay how to dissolve. It tells mountains how to move. This is why the moment a person speaks with authority, even the elements obey, because the law in them is not different from the law that made the sun rise. It is the same divine intelligence. It is the same creative breath. And when spoken in alignment, nothing can stand against it. It is not about volume. It is not about how loud or how long you speak. It is about how aligned and how certain you are. A whisper of truth carries more power than a scream of fear. A single word spoken in full faith outranks 1,000 declarations tainted with doubt. The power is not in how much you say, but in how clearly you know what you're saying. You may say, "I now call forth abundance," and that word will not go unanswered unless your energy contradicts it. You cannot speak wealth and vibrate worry. You cannot speak healing and vibrate hopelessness. The spoken word must be backed by the vibration of belief. Then it becomes the hammer that breaks the old pattern, the light that dispels the shadow, the seed that bursts through the soil. And yet the word is gentle. It does not force, it invites. It does not shout, it aligns. It brings to you all that corresponds with its tone. If you speak peace, peace finds you. If you speak freedom, freedom follows. If you speak love, love surrounds you. You are not waiting for the world to change. The world is waiting for your word to be spoken. Until you speak it, nothing is activated. Until you speak it, all remains potential. Once you speak it, potential becomes path, possibility becomes progress, idea becomes incarnation. You do not need to speak eloquently. You do not need to find perfect phrases. The law is not listening for fancy words. It is listening for real ones, clear ones that vibrate from the truth of your spirit, not the noise of your mind. The law hears the word beneath the word. It hears the intention, not just the sound. So speak simply, but speak strongly. Speak clearly, but speak consciously. Speak not to impress, but to express. Speak not to persuade others, but to align with spirit. There is nothing you cannot change with your word, once you realize your word is not separate from divine law. It is divine law made vocal. The moment you speak, you vibrate. The moment you vibrate, you call. The moment you call, you receive. This is the rhythm. This is the cycle. This is the eternal pattern. And you, as a spiritual being, have access to it at all times. It is not reserved for the few. It is not limited to the learned. It is not withheld for the special. It is available now through your word. You can speak life into finances. You can speak restoration into health. You can speak new paths into situations that seem stuck. You can speak love into relationships that feel broken. You can speak clarity into chaos. You can speak light into darkness, but only if you believe that your word is not mere noise. Only if you recognize that your word is a law in motion. Only if you remember that the sentence you speak is not describing life, it is designing it. The sentence you speak is not a report. It is an instruction. The sentence you speak is not a reaction. It is a creation. You have spoken many sentences over your life, but there is one sentence, once spoken with total knowing, that begins to undo all others. It becomes the hinge, the pivot, the reset, and from that moment, everything begins to align in a new pattern, a new order, a new law.
When you return to the power of your own spoken word, you return to the source of all change. You step out of the loop of struggle and into the stream of divine flow. You stop chasing answers and start declaring them. You stop rehearsing fear and start commanding truth. You stop waiting for signs and start becoming one. And every time you speak with full faith, the unseen moves, the law obeys, and what was once only a desire becomes your daily experience through the most sacred and ancient tool ever given to man. The spoken word, what you declare in faith, manifests in form. This is the unseen law at work, the spiritual engine behind every visible thing. The outer world does not operate on its own. It does not act independently of your inner word. Every condition you see, every experience you face, every opportunity or obstacle that appears, they all emerge from declarations made consciously or unconsciously. Words, when spoken from the field of faith, carry the vibration that commands creation. They do not beg, they do not negotiate, they do not plead, they form, they attract, they shape, they align matter with spirit, and when your declarations come not from fear, not from mental noise, but from divine faith, they become instant seeds in the soil of the law. To declare something in faith is to speak it without looking over your shoulder. It is to speak it without entertaining contradiction. It is to speak it with no backup plan, no apology, no shrinking. Faith is not hope dressed up in fancy words. Faith is the bold knowing that what is spoken must come to pass because spiritual law cannot contradict itself. The law never fails. What fails is our confidence in the law. What wavers is not the universe, but our trust in it. But the moment that trust is solid, the moment the word spoken is rooted in unwavering belief, the manifestation process is no longer delayed. The divine blueprint is released, and the physical world begins to conform to it. People often wonder why things don't change, even when they speak affirmations. The truth is, it is not what you say, it is what you believe when you say it. A declaration in faith carries the vibration of divine authority. A declaration in doubt is only noise. If your word is a vehicle, faith is the engine. Without faith, the sentence doesn't move, it doesn't create, it doesn't magnetize. But once you speak with faith, the word travels straight into the invisible realm and draws the corresponding form back into your life. You may not see it immediately, but it begins instantly. The roots start growing beneath the surface. The current starts flowing behind the scenes. The channels start opening on paths unknown to you. You are not required to figure out how it happens. You are only required to speak it in faith. The how is not your business. The how belongs to divine intelligence. What you hold is the what. You name it. You speak it. You declare it as done. And the law, which governs all manifestation, arranges the how. This is why the declaration must come with detachment. You do not declare in fear, trying to force it into form. You declare and release. You declare and trust. You declare and stand still, knowing that your word, planted in the garden of the law, will blossom without struggle. The deeper your faith, the less you need to see before believing. You understand that appearances are echoes of past declarations. They do not determine your present power. Faith looks beyond sight. Faith looks into the spirit realm and calls what is unseen into visibility. It does not wait for the world to catch up. It leads the world into alignment. Faith declares healing when symptoms persist. Faith declares abundance when the account is empty. Faith declares peace when the winds of chaos rise. And the declaration, made in faith, begins to rebuild the world from the inside out. It breaks the pattern of past thinking. It stops the momentum of fear. It writes a new law onto the scroll of your reality. Many people are stuck not because of outside forces, but because they declare things rooted in fear. They say, I can't, and so they don't. They say, it never works, and so it doesn't.
They say, "I don't know how," and the answer hides from them. These two are declarations, and the law responds just as surely. It is not selective. It does not ask if your statement is helpful or harmful. It simply obeys. The law does not think. It does not debate. It mirrors, so if you want a new reflection, you must give it a new image, and that image begins with your words. Your word is the mold, the law is the material, faith is the fire that seals the form. What you declare in faith may seem like a lie to the senses. You may say, "I am prosperous," and your wall, it is empty. You may say, "I am whole," and your body aches, but faith never consults evidence. Faith consults truth. The truth is not what you see. The truth is what is eternal, unchanging, divine. And when you speak in alignment with truth rather than condition, the condition begins to shift. The condition must obey the higher word. That is the spiritual hierarchy. The visible bends to the invisible. Matter bows to mind. Manifestation obeys belief. And faith is the magnet that pulls the promise into form. This is why your word must be guarded. You cannot afford careless declarations. You cannot afford sentences that contradict your vision. You must speak as if the universe is always listening, because it is. You must speak as if every word you say is a seed, because it is. You must speak as if the law is responding instantly, because it does. There is no idle talk in the spirit. There are only instructions. You either instruct the law to bless you or block you. You either command it to deliver your good or delay it. And once you understand this, you stop wasting words. You begin to declare with intention. You begin to edit your language not out of superstition, but out of sovereignty. To declare something in faith is to walk ahead of proof. It is to walk ahead of evidence. It is to walk into the unknown with the light of certainty. You are not led by what is. You are led by what must be. You are not hypnotized by facts. You are awakened by truth. And truth is not something you observe. It is something you declare. You declare light, and light appears. You declare joy, and joy returns. You declare direction, and the path clears. You declare supply, and the resources move toward you. The declaration in faith is the invitation that cannot be ignored. The moment you say it and believe it, the entire matrix of reality begins to shift in response. Every great transformation begins with a word, not a word of hope, but a word of knowing, not a word of maybe, but a word of must, not a word of waiting, but a word of now. It is done. It is mine, I receive. These are not affirmations. They are declarations. They are spiritual signatures. They are contracts signed in the ink of faith. They carry legal weight in the court of divine law, and the moment they are spoken, heaven moves, channels open, walls fall, delays end. Your job is not to hustle for the result. Your job is to hold the vibration of your declaration. Your job is to remain in agreement with what you've already said. Your job is to keep your faith fixed, even when the scene looks opposite. The law tests for consistency. It tests for agreement. It tests for stability. And when you pass those tests, manifestation becomes inevitable. There is no resistance left. There is no contradiction. The inner and the outer begin to reflect one another. You no longer send mixed signals. You no longer undo your own progress. You speak once, and the world obeys. You no longer use your word to describe your reality. You use it to command your reality. You no longer report the news. You write the headline. Faith is not blind. It sees deeper. Faith is not naive. It is rooted in eternal law. Faith is not passive. It is the most active force in the universe. And your declaration, spoken in faith, carries all the weight of creation behind it. You don't need to push, force, or manipulate. You only need to say the word and stand in the vibration of that word, and the form must follow. The invisible must become visible. The word must become flesh. The sentence you speak in faith becomes the life you live in truth. It becomes the reality that others see and call a miracle. But you know it was only the law responding to a voice it cannot ignore, the voice of faith declaring its divine right with absolute certainty. Delay dissolves the moment you command with certainty. The spiritual law does not recognize time as humans do. What you call delay is not a denial from the divine. It is simply a pause caused by doubt, by hesitation, by conflicting vibrations. When your command is uncertain, the law cannot move. It does not act on partial energy. It does not respond to indecision. It waits. It holds back, not as punishment, but in perfect alignment with your energy. But the instant you speak with certainty, with unwavering knowing, with full alignment in mind, heart, and word, the law rushes forward. It responds instantly. It begins the orchestration, the rearrangement, the delivery. Delay is never about divine timing with holding good. It is about spiritual law honoring your current level of faith. Certainty is not a feeling. It is not an emotion that fluctuates with mood or outer evidence. Certainty is a vibration. It is a spiritual signature. It is a deep inner knowing that what is declared must appear, because the law has no option but to obey. Certainty does not wait for evidence, it creates it. Certainty does not seek validation, it declares truth. It is the vibration that collapses time, that breaks cycles, that dissolves blocks, and once this vibration is active, delay begins to vanish. The very things that seemed stuck, slow, or unreachable begin to move with divine speed. The path opens, the answer comes, the support appears, but only after certainty is established. When you are uncertain, you emit two commands. You say one thing with your mouth and another with your energy. You declare prosperity, but carry the vibration of fear. You speak healing, but hold the vibration of doubt. You call for love, but emit the energy of unworthiness. The law cannot operate in contradiction. It must follow your dominant vibration. It must obey the clearest signal. And when that signal is a mixture of fear and faith, the result is a standstill. Nothing moves. Nothing flows, not because the universe has closed, but because your instruction is unclear. To command with certainty is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the full acceptance of your divine authority. You do not have to earn this authority. You were born with it. It was breathed into you before you spoke your first word. But to use it, you must believe in it. You must rise above the noise of the world, the voices of the past, the records of limitation. You must remember that spiritual law responds not to personality, but to principle, not to desperation, but to declaration. And when the declaration is pure, direct, and infused with certainty, the law has no resistance. Delay can feel like a wall, but it is only a mirror. It reflects your vibration back to you. When you shift the inner frequency, the outer wall turns to a door, the obstacle turns to opportunity, the silence turns to an answer. The gap closes not because time has passed, but because your vibration has risen. You are never waiting for your manifestation. Your manifestation is waiting for your certainty, and once certainty arrives, so does the shift. There is no need to struggle with delay. There is no need to force things to move. That is the old pattern, the belief that effort brings results. But in spiritual law, it is not effort that activates, it is energy. It is not toil that creates, it is vibration. You could spend years pushing, striving, trying, and still be delayed because your vibration is not aligned. But you could speak one sentence with complete certainty, and everything begins to rearrange itself. One clear command from a place of divine knowing does more than 1,000 forced actions from a place of fear. You were not designed to wait endlessly. You were designed to create, to call, to command. The delay is not natural. It is a signal that the command has not yet reached full clarity. The moment you release the command with no resistance, no question, no plan B, the signal reaches the law in full strength. And the law, which has no will of its own, obeys. You will often find that what seemed delayed was only one declaration away, one decision, one inner shift, one moment of spiritual confidence, and then it moves, sometimes faster than logic can explain, sometimes from channels you never imagined, sometimes through people, places, and paths that seemed impossible. But none of it begins until certainty is spoken. To command with certainty is to stop rehearsing your fears. It is to stop defending your limitations. It is to stop repeating what is wrong. Instead, you speak only what is true in spirit. You speak your new reality as if it already is. You do not try to convince anyone else. You do not explain your declarations. You do not justify them. You speak them as law, as fact, as spiritual truth. You say, "This is mine. This is done. This is who I am." And you do not waver. You do not check for signs. You do not ask if it worked. You assume it did. You live in the vibration of done. The power of certainty is that it brings all parts of your being into agreement. No more inner debate, no more second guessing, no more divided energy. The mind aligns with the heart aligns with the word aligns with the law, and the law aligns with the outcome. When all parts are in agreement, manifestation becomes effortless. You are no longer trying to create with half of yourself. You are creating with the full power of your being, and that power, once focused, is unstoppable. Delay is not a punishment, it is a teacher. It shows you where your faith is still growing. It shows you what beliefs still need to be released. It shows you what fears still hold your vibration down. When you stop seeing delay as the enemy and start seeing it as a message, you gain wisdom. You stop asking, "Why is it not here yet?" and start asking, "What am I still believing that's keeping it away?" That question is not weakness, it is power. Because the moment you find the contradiction, you can remove it. And the moment it is removed, certainty flows in. Certainty does not require perfect conditions. It does not require approval. It does not require outer support. It is born in the silence, in the soul, in the sacred space where spirit speaks louder than circumstance. You can be surrounded by doubt, but hold certainty within. You can be told it's impossible and still know it's done. You can look at the facts and still speak the truth, because certainty is not moved by facts. It is moved only by truth, and truth always overrides facts when spoken with full authority. When you command with certainty, you remove the delays that hesitation creates. You collapse time. You erase barriers. You release the old energy that was slowing your progress. It is not about being loud. It is not about shouting your declaration. It is about the still, quiet confidence that says, "I know. I don't hope. I don't wonder. I know." And when that knowing becomes the foundation of your words, the outer world bends to match it. It must. The law cannot argue with a soul that is certain. This is why your declaration must come from the spirit, not the surface. You do not speak to impress others. You do not speak to convince yourself. You speak because you have aligned with truth, and truth cannot be unspoken. The moment it is voiced, it sets everything in motion. Delays that were once months long dissolve in hours. What was stuck starts moving. What was hidden is revealed. What was closed opens wide. Not because the outer world changed, but because you did. Your vibration changed. Your command changed. Your certainty rose. The old story ends the moment you say it does. The new one begins the moment you declare it as real. You can rewrite your entire experience, not with effort, but with a single unwavering sentence. This is done. This is mine. This is who I am now. No more waiting, no more watching, no more wavering. Just a clean, clear command spoken with full certainty. And once that sentence leaves your lips, the delay that seemed so permanent evaporates like mist in the morning light. For the law has heard the voice of one who finally knows it is time. And once the law is activated through certainty, it cannot stop until the form appears.
until the declaration has become the visible proof of what was once only a word spoken in faith and sealed in divine authority. Your word overrides the evidence of the senses. What you see, hear, touch, and experience is not the final authority. It is the echo of past beliefs, past declarations, past vibrations. The senses report what has already been formed, not what is still forming. They report what was declared yesterday, not what you are now declaring into existence. The senses are followers, not leaders. They cannot see the spiritual pattern being established in the invisible. They cannot feel the shift taking place at the level of truth. They only reflect the result once it has arrived. But when you know this, you stop letting your senses rule your reality. You stop taking outer appearances as permanent. You stop calling temporary conditions the truth. Instead, you call truth what spirit calls true, and you speak it not because it is visible yet, but because it is law. When you declare a word that contradicts your current condition, you are not lying, you are leading. You are leading the visible out of its pattern and into the new one. You are not ignoring facts, you are overriding them. You are telling the law, this is the new instruction, and the law listens. It cannot resist the voice of authority spoken from alignment. It does not argue with truth, it obeys, and the moment you declare a higher truth, that truth begins to carve a path through every false condition, no matter how loud the senses scream. This is the secret of transformation. Speak what you want, not what you see. Speak what is coming, not what is current. Speak what is true in spirit, not what is passing in form. The senses are only trained by repetition. They are not wise. They are habitual. They believe what they are told most often. If you tell them I am broke, they show you a world of lack. If you tell them I am prosperous, they begin to reshape their feedback. It takes time for them to catch up, but they always do. They are mirrors. And the reflection always follows the spoken word, not the other way around. This is why those who live by the senses remain stuck. They believe only what they can measure. They wait for proof before believing. But the one who understands truth speaks the word first and lets the proof follow. They declare their new reality in the face of the old one, knowing that the old must give way. Your word is the only tool that can reach beyond the current condition. It pierces through appearances. It carries authority the senses do not recognize but must eventually obey. When the body is in pain, the senses say, "You are sick." But your word can say, "I am whole." And if spoken with enough conviction, the cells begin to listen. When the account is low, the senses say, "There is not enough." But your word says, "I am richly supplied." And if declared in faith, the supply begins to appear in perfect timing and perfect ways. When fear rises, the senses say, "This is dangerous." But your word says, "I am safe, guarded, and surrounded by divine protection." And if spoken with certainty, peace begins to rise from within and shift your atmosphere. It is not your job to silence your senses. It is your job to speak over them, to reprogram them, to teach them a new language. They were not designed to lead your spirit. They were designed to serve it. But they will only serve what is spoken with conviction. Until then, they will continue repeating what they have memorized from past declarations, from childhood programming, from cultural stories, from fear-based conclusions. Your job is to interrupt that pattern with truth. To declare something so often, so clearly, so powerfully, that the senses begin to follow. It is not enough to think it. It must be spoken. The word carries energy. The spoken word carries momentum. It cuts through inertia. It declares that a new pattern has begun. You are not at the mercy of what you see. You are not stuck in the frame of your current conditions. They are old news. They are outdated. They are the leftovers of what used to be. The moment you realize this, you stop reacting to life and start instructing it. You stop waiting for a better scene and start writing one. You stop saying, "This is just how it is," and start saying, "This is how it shall be now." You no longer argue for your limitations. You no longer speak the problem as if it has power. You speak the new reality as if it is already unfolding, because in truth it is. The spoken word, when aligned with spirit, rewrites the program. It inserts new code into the matrix of reality. It tells the law, "This is what I now accept as true." And the law adjusts everything to match it. The senses may take a while to adjust, but adjust they must. There is no law that allows a word spoken in faith to return void. It may pass through delay, through process, through layers of resistance, but it must return fulfilled. That is the law, that is the promise, that is the unbreakable agreement between your voice and divine reality. You can walk through the fire of appearances without being burned if your word remains aligned. You can walk through the valley of lack and not feel empty if your word declares abundance. You can sit in a place of stillness and not feel stuck if your word is declaring divine movement. Your circumstances do not define your power. Your senses do not determine your future. Your word does. It is your command center. It is your weapon. It is your staff. And once it is released in certainty, nothing can override it, not even the loudest evidence. What happens for most is that they speak a new word once or twice, then look around for instant results. When they don't see change, they fall back into the old vibration. They say, "It didn't work." But the word is not magic. It is law, and law needs consistency. If you plant a seed and dig it up the next day because you see no tree, you break the process. But if you plant it, water it, and protect it, even when nothing is visible, it must eventually rise. The same is true of your word. If spoken with faith and maintained with trust, it cannot fail. The senses may delay their confirmation, but they will confirm. This is why your practice must be daily. You must keep declaring what is true, no matter what appears. You must speak healing while feeling pain. You must speak increase while seeing decrease. You must speak peace while walking through chaos. And not because you are ignoring reality, but because you are commanding a higher one. You are not escaping facts. You are applying truth to transform them. The higher word always overrides the lower one. The spiritual always overrides the physical, but only when spoken with boldness. The boldness to speak something higher than your current experience is the key to spiritual mastery. It is the sign that you no longer live under the dictatorship of the senses. It means you have returned to your original state, the one who names, calls, commands, and sees it established. This is your divine inheritance. This is your birthright, and it is activated only through the spoken word. You are not required to be perfect. You are not required to feel powerful every moment, but you are required to speak the truth, even in the face of lies. You are required to affirm what is divinely yours, even when your senses say otherwise. You are required to lift your word above your world, and the moment you do, the shift begins. The invisible starts to take form. The evidence begins to change, and the senses, once screaming contradiction, begin to quietly agree. They bow to the word, they bend to the new decree, they follow the new command, because the word spoken in certainty always wins. It does not need to shout, it does not need to beg. It only needs to be spoken and held in faith, and the world reshapes itself in response. The outer must obey the inner, the senses must obey the word. The moment you speak with knowing, with boldness, with clarity, the illusion begins to dissolve, and the truth begins to rise from the soil of spirit into the visible shape of your life. The invisible responds only to conviction, not confusion. You do not shape your world by wishing or wondering. You shape it by deciding. You mold the unseen not by scattered thoughts, but by focused energy. Confusion emits a weak vibration, one that the law cannot translate into form. It is a mixed signal, a blurred instruction, a fogged mirror. But conviction sends a clear command. It is sharp, certain, unmistakable. The invisible realm, which holds every potential, listens only to clarity. It responds not to indecision, but to the voice that knows, the voice that does not question, the voice that does not retreat, the voice that knows what it wants and speaks it as law. And when that voice speaks, Creation moves people often wonder why their prayers go unanswered, why their affirmations seem powerless, why their intentions do not manifest. It is not that the law has failed. It is that the signal was never steady. One moment they declare abundance, the next they fear lack. One moment they speak healing, the next they consult symptoms. One moment they decree success, the next they question their worth. The law does not punish, it simply mirrors. And when you speak with a divided mind, the mirror reflects division. The result is not failure, but confusion manifest. You get a mixture of what you believe, a partial expression of your power, a delayed version of your desire. Not because you are unworthy, but because the law is obeying a muddy signal. Conviction is clean. It does not second, guess. It does not wait for proof. It does not negotiate with fear. Conviction does not raise its voice to feel powerful. It is powerful because it is rooted in truth. It is quiet, still, unmoved. It speaks once and trusts. It commands once and holds. It declares once and knows the law has heard. This kind of conviction activates the unseen in ways that confusion never can. It is the difference between standing in your authority and tiptoeing through spiritual principles, unsure of what you're allowed to say or believe. The moment you choose to believe without backup, the invisible listens. The moment you decide to stand in truth without wavering, the invisible responds. There is no law that supports half faith. There is no law that multiplies confusion. There is only the law that magnifies what is spoken in certainty. That is why the results of your word are not based on how hard you try, but how fully you believe. Conviction carries its own momentum. It needs no push. It needs no force. It moves mountains not because it is loud, but because it is true. It is not something you borrow. It is something you uncover. It is within you already, waiting for you to choose it over fear, over doubt, over hesitation. And once you choose conviction, the path begins to clear. The invisible does not care about how long you've waited. It does not respond to how badly you want it. It does not weigh how much you've suffered. It moves only when you decide, when your soul finally settles into a firm yes, not a maybe, not an I hope, not an I think I'm ready, but a full-bodied, spirit-filled no looking back. This is mine kind of yes. That vibration speaks to the field of all possibilities and awakens your selected reality. That vibration tells the formless, this is what I have chosen. And the formless shapes itself around your decision. You are not waiting for the universe. The universe is waiting for your clarity. The invisible realm, the spiritual matrix, the field of divine substance. It is all ready to move the moment your word is firm. But if you keep changing the channel, the signal is lost. If you keep planting new seeds over yesterday's harvest, nothing takes root. You must be willing to stand still in your knowing, to hold the vision even when the outer appears unchanged. The unseen is always moving faster than the seen. The invisible begins to rearrange as soon as it hears your command. But the form takes time to catch up. That is not delay. That is order. That is law. And conviction holds its ground while the form finishes its journey. There is something magnetic about certainty. It draws to you the people, the resources, the timing, the doors, the favor. It is not luck. It is law. When you speak from a place of absolute conviction, your energy becomes a beacon. It says, this is done. And the universe begins to conspire. You don't need to figure out how. You don't need to micromanage the details. You only need to maintain the vibration. You only need to keep saying yes to the vision, even when the world says no. You only need to refuse to lower your energy to match what isn't working, and instead raise the atmosphere around you by standing in your decision. The invisible does not respond to noise. It responds to tone. Your conviction carries a frequency that cannot be faked. You may speak with eloquence, but if your spirit is uncertain, the law hears the doubt. You may speak few words, but if your heart is aligned, the law hears the power. It is not the size of your vocabulary that matters.
It is the purity of your vibration. Are you aligned with your word? Are you in full agreement with your decree? Are your emotions backing your intention? Is your inner being fully supporting the outcome you desire? If yes, then manifestation is already in motion. Confusion is not a flaw. It is a sign. It tells you that something within is not in harmony. Perhaps you want something but still carry fear about having it. Perhaps you desire change but still identify with your old story. Perhaps you ask for more but feel guilty about receiving it. These are the subtle contradictions that confuse the law. The moment you clear them, the moment you say, "I choose this and I will not argue with it," the power that was always yours begins to flow freely. You are not convincing the universe. You are aligning with it. You are not making the invisible act. You are giving it permission. The law of the invisible is always perfect, always active, always listening. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be tricked. It cannot be hurried. But it can be activated instantly by conviction. Conviction is the spiritual password that unlocks the flow. It tells the law, "I am ready," not because you have proven yourself, not because you've earned it, but because you finally said yes without reservation. That is all the law ever needed, a yes so full, so complete, so final, that the past can no longer interfere, the doubts can no longer speak, and the fear can no longer lead. Many think they must feel brave to be convicted. But conviction is not about feelings, it is about decision. You can feel afraid and still decide. You can feel uncertain and still choose. Conviction does not mean the absence of emotion. It means the dominance of truth. It means truth takes the lead and emotion follows. The moment you let truth lead, the emotional storm begins to settle. The invisible does not wait for your fear to leave. It waits for your truth to rise. And when that truth rises, when it becomes the strongest voice within you, everything changes. Not because the world outside has changed yet, but because the signal has become unshakable. The invisible begins to build, the energy begins to move, the way begins to form, all because you finally spoke with conviction. All because you finally chose your vision and refused to explain it, defend it, or delay it. The invisible realm is not far away. It is closer than breath. It surrounds you, fills you, responds to you. But it will not respond to a scattered mind. It will not respond to a conflicted heart. It will only respond to one thing, conviction. And conviction is yours to choose. It is yours to activate. It is yours to carry. Not because life makes it easy, but because truth makes it inevitable. When you speak your truth without apology, when you declare your good without shrinking, when you name your desire without guilt, the invisible has no choice but to move. It is bound by law to obey a voice that speaks from alignment. You may have spoken 1,000 words in the past and seen little change, but the moment one word is spoken with conviction, the 1,000 doubts are cancelled. The moment one decree is made with clarity, the fog begins to lift. The moment one sentence is spoken from spiritual knowing, the entire atmosphere around your life begins to shift. The invisible listens for that tone. The tone of certainty, the tone of alignment, the tone of decision. And when it hears it, it answers, not in hesitation, but in precision, not in theory, but in demonstration, not in part, but in full measure. For the invisible always mirrors the conviction of the one who dares to speak truth louder than fear, louder than history, louder than anything the world has tried to say before. That is the voice that moves mountains. That is the voice that manifests destiny. That is the voice the universe has been waiting for, the voice of unwavering conviction. One true statement, spoken with power, reshapes destiny. It doesn't take a lifetime of perfect words, rituals, or endless efforts to change the course of your life. It takes one statement, one decree, one declaration, spoken with absolute belief, pure spiritual fire, and complete alignment. That single moment of truth, when you stand in the full power of your word, sends out a vibration that alters everything. It moves the invisible currents. It touches the field of infinite supply.
It sends a clear instruction to the universe. And when that statement is born of faith and not fear, of knowing and not wishing, it reaches into the unseen and carves a new path for your future. A single sentence can shatter the illusion of limitation. A single phrase can cancel years of delay. A true word, spoken with spiritual certainty, releases a chain of divine events that no man, no doubt, no circumstance can reverse. You are not required to beg the universe. You are not required to repeat 100 affirmations without faith. You are not required to fix everything in your life before things begin to move. The truth is more direct than that. When your soul rises and speaks one statement as law, unchallenged, undoubted, and unshaken, the universe obeys. That is the secret. It is not how long you've tried, but how clearly you speak. Not how loudly you speak, but how truthfully. The power is not in the many words, but in the one word spoken with full belief. You are not changing your life by force. You are changing it by decree. You are stepping into divine authority and using your voice as the creative instrument. It was meant to be a true statement, does not come from the head. It comes from the spirit. It is not memorized, it is revealed. It is not repeated to convince. It is spoken because it already knows. And when it is spoken, it shakes the foundation of your old story. It breaks the echo of past failures. It releases the weight of generational patterns. It cuts through the veil of confusion. It declares, this is who I am, this is what is mine, this is what I now receive. And in that moment, heaven bends toward you. Doors open, chains break, the atmosphere shifts. The invisible realm begins to mold itself around your word. There is creative fire in the spoken word. Not just any word, but the word charged with divine belief. When you speak truth without compromise, you set a new frequency in motion. That frequency travels through realms, through energy fields, through people, and returns as manifestation. One true statement becomes a magnet. It begins to draw all that matches its vibration. If your statement is, I am rich now, and you speak it from the soul, not to hope, but to declare, then abundance begins to flow in ways unseen. If your statement is, I am healed now, and it is spoken as law, not in question, but in knowing, then the substance of the body begins to shift. If your statement is, I succeed in everything I touch, and you speak it from your divine identity, not your human history, then success becomes the law of your experience. This is not about positive thinking. It is about spiritual command. It is about the original power you carry in your word. The word is not just communication. It is creation. It is a vessel for power. It is the signal you send to the invisible to shape what appears. Every statement you make is a seed, but a true statement, charged with unwavering belief, is a seed already growing. It begins to sprout the moment it is spoken. It begins to shape the circumstances the moment it is declared. There are no idle words in the realm of law. Every word has an echo. Every sentence leaves a mark. Every decree activates a pattern. The only question is, are you speaking from fear or faith, from memory or revelation, from doubt or dominion? One true sentence can redeem a lifetime of hesitation. One bold phrase can override decades of lack. One moment of alignment can cancel years of confusion. It is not time that heals. It is truth. It is not effort that manifests. It is alignment. It is not struggle that changes life. It is speech rooted in spiritual identity. The word does not get its power from repetition. It gets its power from belief. When you speak once and mean it, you accomplish more than 1,000 empty affirmations. When you speak from your divine authority, even the most stubborn condition must yield. The mountain must move. The tide must turn. The situation must obey. There is divine precision in the right word, spoken at the right time. The sentence may be simple. Everything works out for me.
Money flows to me with ease. I am loved and chosen. I am one with perfect health. These statements, when believed, become creative instruments. They are not just sentences, they are instructions. They tell the invisible what to build. They tell the future where to go. They tell the present how to shift. And the unseen realm, being perfect and obedient, begins to obey immediately. You may not see the full evidence right away, but rest assured the vibration has been sent. The energy has been commanded. The new path has begun. You do not need to feel powerful to speak power. You only need to align. You only need to step into your role as the one who is authorized by divine law to speak things into existence. You are not a victim of life. You are a shaper of it. Your words are tools, and one tool used correctly can rebuild a whole house. A single decree, made with no doubt, opens the floodgates of divine order. Your statement may sound small to others, but in the realm of spirit, it is a thunderclap. It resounds through time. It rearranges destiny. It alters the course of your life. There is no need to explain your statement to others. The power is not in whether they believe it. It is in whether you do. Your true statement is not up for discussion. It is law. It is final. It is sacred. You do not speak it to get approval. You speak it to set creation in motion. You do not wait to feel ready. You speak because you are ready now. You do not wait for permission. You are the permission. You are the cause. You are the beginning of change, and the sentence you speak becomes the first link in a new chain of manifestation. The world will reflect your declaration. The outer conditions must begin to adjust themselves to match the new frequency you've set. People will appear. Ideas will come. Resources will flow. It is not magic. It is law. The same law that governs the sun and stars governs your word. And when your word is backed by divine belief, the law bends to support it. The universe, the divine mind, the formless substance of spirit, it all begins to shape your experience according to the image you have spoken. One statement can paint a new picture. One word can become the foundation of a new life. That is how much power you hold. Do not underestimate the moment you decide to speak truth over fear. That one moment is sacred. It is a turning point. It is the birthplace of new things. It may come in silence, in solitude, in stillness, but it is no less real. In fact, it is more real than anything you see. The true statement doesn't always feel dramatic, but it carries drama in the spirit. It causes waves you may not feel at first, but soon the shift becomes undeniable. The fruit begins to show. The changes begin to manifest, and all of it traces back to one sentence, one statement. One moment of divine clarity, spoken without hesitation. This is why you must be careful what you say. Every word is either building or breaking. Every sentence is either sowing or stalling. You do not need more effort. You need more truth. You do not need more proof. You need more belief. You do not need more noise. You need one sentence that contains your whole truth, one decree that overrides every excuse, one phrase that carries your soul's authority. You already know the truth you must speak. It is within you. It has always been there. The sentence that changes everything is not outside of you. It is rising within you. You may have ignored it. You may have delayed it. You may have let fear push it down. But it has not left. It is still waiting to be spoken. And when you speak it, not because you feel brave, but because you choose truth over fear, the law of life bows to your word. The path unfolds. The chains fall. The doors open. Not because something outside changed, but because one true statement, spoken from your divine center, changed the energy, the alignment, the story, the atmosphere, and therefore, the destiny. That is the power you carry. That is the weight of your word. That is the truth waiting on your lips. One sentence, if true enough, if clear enough, if bold enough, is all it takes to begin again from power instead of pain, from spirit instead of struggle, from knowing instead of needing, from law instead of luck. Speak, your new world into being without hesitation.
That is the spiritual key that unlocks all that is unseen and held in waiting. The moment you speak from the power of your divine center, you move creation itself. Life has been waiting on you, not to beg, not to plead, not to ask timidly, but to rise and speak.
There is no delay in the invisible realm, only hesitation in the mind of man. But the moment you bypass fear, silence doubt, and open your mouth with full belief, you call forth what has already been yours in spirit. The moment you speak, you release the energy. The moment you speak, you break the spell of limitation. The moment you speak, you shift from the effect of circumstances to the cause of change. And that shift is everything many people wait for proof before they speak what they desire. They wait for signs, they wait for outer confirmation, but the law of spirit responds not to evidence, but to expression. The new world cannot be proven before it is spoken. It is spoken first, then it reveals itself. Just as the earth was formed by divine decree, so must your world be spoken into being. You are not here to observe and react, you are here to initiate and declare. When you speak with divine confidence, without hesitation, you are not being unrealistic. You are being creative. You are not escaping reality. You are giving birth to a higher one. Every time you speak in alignment with divine truth, the old begins to dissolve, and the new begins to emerge. To hesitate is to delay your destiny. Every time you wait until it feels safe to speak, you postpone your miracle. Every time you delay the word because you are unsure how it will happen, you create confusion in the field. The law responds to clarity, not caution. It responds to certainty, not analysis. When you speak with the full authority of spirit, without the apology of fear, you activate divine order. Speak your wealth into being, even if the bank account disagrees. Speak your healing into being, even if the body resists. Speak your opportunity into being, even if doors seem closed. The world you desire does not come after you see results. It comes after you claim it. And the claiming begins with the word. The voice is sacred. It is not merely a tool of communication. It is an instrument of command. When you use your voice to declare a new reality, you set a divine process in motion. You become like the conductor of a cosmic orchestra, and the unseen begins to play your song. But you must speak without hesitation. Doubt in the voice delays the manifestation. Fear in the tone weakens the instruction. The more boldly you speak, the faster the law moves. The more clearly you speak, the more accurate the result. The more powerfully you speak, the more unshakable your world becomes. You do not speak to wish. You speak to will. You speak to move substance into shape. You speak to call the formless into form. And that authority has always been yours. The hesitation comes when the mind interferes with the spirit. The mind says, "But what if it doesn't work?" The spirit says it already has. The mind says, "But I don't see anything yet." The spirit says, "That's because you haven't spoken yet." The mind says, "But what if I look foolish?" The spirit says, "Foolishness is fearing your own power." You must decide which voice governs your speech. If the mind leads, the voice is silenced by logic, and the miracle stalls. If the spirit leads, the voice is charged with knowing, and the miracle begins. Every day, you are given a choice, to speak from fear or to speak from faith. And the world you live in will match the choice you make. When you hesitate, the universe waits. When you speak, the universe moves. That is the divine rhythm of creation. Your silence cannot bring a harvest. Your fear cannot create favor. But your word, spoken with unshakable belief, commands the blessing. It releases the energy. It opens the path. You may not understand how, but you must speak anyway. You may not see the way, but you must speak anyway. The speaking is not the end result. It is the beginning. It is the seed. It is the cause. And once it is planted with power, the harvest becomes inevitable. But a seed never planted cannot grow. A word never spoken cannot manifest. A truth never declared cannot become reality. You do not need permission to speak your world into being. You are already appointed. You are already authorized. You are already anointed with the voice of creation. The law does not question your worthiness. It responds to your word. The law does not judge your past. It obeys your present decree. The law does not measure your voice by volume. It measures it by belief. It is not the loudest voice that moves creation. It is the truest. It is the most aligned. It is the most unwavering. You can whisper your new world into being, and if that whisper is filled with conviction, it will carry the same force as a thunderclap in the spiritual realm. Stop waiting for everything to look right before you speak what is right. The old world may look strong, but it is weak in the presence of truth. Lack may appear real, but it collapses under the sound of abundance. Sickness may scream, but it cannot outvoice healing. Delay may linger, but it dissolves when destiny is declared. Speak your world into being. Speak it before you see it. Speak it before it makes sense. Speak it before others believe it. Speak it before you feel ready. The moment you speak, you align with the power that already knows it is done. And that power begins to move things on your behalf. Every major shift in your life will be preceded by a spoken word. Nothing changes until something is declared. No mountain moves until something is said. No chain breaks until something is released from your mouth. That is the spiritual key. If you stay silent, the condition remains. If you speak, the condition begins to change, not because the condition has power, but because your word has more. It is your divine right to interrupt any story, any cycle, any circumstance with your declaration of truth. The moment you do, a new script begins to write itself. A new energy begins to surround you. A new timeline begins to form, and that newness is not random. It is created by your voice. You were never meant to be quiet in the face of opposition. You were never meant to whisper your destiny. You were never meant to hope silently for things to improve. You were meant to speak. You were meant to declare. You were meant to command. You were meant to shape reality with your word. That is the divine design. That is the spiritual order. The world is not given to those who wait. It is given to those who speak. The future is not handed out. It is spoken into existence. And every time you speak without hesitation, you step deeper into your role as co-creator of your experience. This is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. It is not about forcing outcomes. It is about flowing with divine authority. When you speak your world into being, you are not pretending. You are participating. You are not making things up. You are making things real. That is the difference between speaking from fear and speaking from faith. Fear waits for evidence. Faith creates it. Fear waits for permission. Faith grants it. Fear keeps silent. Faith speaks. And only one of them has the power to change the world. You may not feel ready to speak your truth, but that is the very reason you must. The readiness comes after the speech, not before. The clarity comes after the word, not before. The shift happens because you spoke, not because you waited. And once you speak, truly, boldly, with full belief, you will wonder why you waited so long. The delay will make no sense to the new you. The fear will look small from the mountain of manifestation. And the world you once wished for will now be the world you live in. Because you chose to speak it into being without hesitation, there will always be moments where doubt tempts you to stay silent. There will always be times where the old story tries to convince you to keep quiet. But you must remember, creation does not wait for comfort. Creation responds to courage. And the moment you speak, the moment you declare your new world, you become the vessel through which that world arrives. You become the evidence. You become the change. You become the miracle. Not because you begged for it, but because you believed it enough to speak it aloud. Speak what is yours. Speak what is true. Speak what is already done in the spirit. Do not shrink back. Do not explain yourself. Do not ask for agreement. Do not seek applause. The moment you speak with divine authority, the agreement of the universe is already yours. You do not need to see immediate proof. You are the proof. The shift begins in you. The change begins with you. The power is not somewhere out there. It is in your voice, and the world that matches your soul is waiting on one thing, for you to speak it into being without hesitation.